In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. O most holy Joseph, glorious patriarch, chosen by God as the head of and protector of the Holy Family, take my family under your fatherly protection and care. Be for us a faithful supporter, a foster father, a counselor, guide, leader, and strong defender against all that may injure us. We give into your keeping our soul, our body, and our life. Into your hands we place the joy and pain, happiness and misery of our whole life, as well as at the hour of our death. Obtain for us, O Saint Joseph, that our family life may always be in accord with the will of God, that we may faithfully fulfill our duty towards him, our neighbors, and ourselves, that we may thank him in prosperity and praise him in adversity, that we may be zealous in the performance of good and watchful in the avoidance of evil, that we may live a pious life and die perfectly resigned to the will of God. Amen. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Okay. Jeffrey Hahn.
It's a great joy for me to be here tonight with y'all because this topic is very important to me, especially because I have children, and this is the industry that I live and breathe. I work at EWTN, and so I'm responsible for. We have 8 television networks. We have 3 24/7 radios, 24/7 radio stations that we broadcast, and I'm responsible for streaming everything. So unfortunately, I go to trade shows in Las Vegas and all over the place, and I kind of see who and what's out there in the industry, and it's pretty bad. And as you may know, and as you hear, and as we see the effects on TV, especially the pornographic industry is very big and very large. And so I just wanted to share some things with you on the technical end and in a few other places that I think as parents that we can shore up in our homes. We need to shore up on the technological side, protections, and then I'll go into a few other areas outside of the technology side of things that I think would help. But what I'll do is I'll first open up with Scripture. It's Ephesians 6:10 through 13. It says, "Finally, draw your strength from the Lord and from his mighty power. Put on the armor of God so that you may be able to stand firm against the tactics of the devil. For our struggle is not with flesh and blood, but with principalities, with powers, with the world rulers of this present darkness, with evil spirits in the heavens. Therefore put on the armor of God that you may be able to resist on the evil day, and having done everything, hold your ground." Because truly, this is truly a very evil thing that we have to guard ourselves against, because it's a just in the United States alone, and I'll probably repeat this, but it's a $15 billion industry. And so they're very aggressive. And I want to say it's close to, the figures vary, but close to 70 billion worldwide. So it's huge. It's huge. And so that's what we're up against. So what we'll do is we'll take a look at some stats on porn. Again, these numbers vary depending where you go, but every second, roughly 30,000 internet users are viewing pornography. Every 39 minutes, a porn video is being created in the U.S. And I'll explain a little bit about that. 12% of all websites are pornographic. 35% of all internet downloads are pornographic. And 89% of the porn is exported and created here in the U.S. Like I said, it's a $10 to $15 $10 to $15 billion industry in the U.S. So it's huge, and it's just growing. It's growing fast. So let's take a look at how porn has influenced the market that we live in. So before the World Wide Web came about, 80% of the websites before the World Wide Web, roughly 80% were pornographic. Raise your hand if you remember this. Do you remember the battle between VHS and Betamax in the 80s? So Beta was small and the VHS was big. The reason why VHS won was because of the porn industry, because it could hold more. I want to say Beta was maxed out at like 61, 62 minutes or something like that, but the VHS could hold more than that. So Blu-ray and DVD. Blu-ray is much higher quality. The compression rate, the video rate at which it streams video is much higher, so you get a clear image. The pornography industry has done a lot to push the Blu-ray side. You can thank higher bandwidths and e-commerce to pornography. So basically the pornographic industry was one of the first industries to conduct financial transactions, secure final transactions online. And they were pushing for higher bandwidth so they could stream higher quality stuff to your home. And the way pictures and the way the whole internet infrastructure was built, they wanted higher efficiencies so that pictures and videos and financial transactions could take place in the privacy of your own home. So wherever there's new technology coming out that involves videos, that involves pictures, that involves really anything, the pornographic industry is going to be there. Again, they were on the forefront of the e-commerce side. The Business Insider had an article talking about how the military was the creator of the internet, but the pornography industry was the entrepreneur that took this product to market. So it's the pornography business that was really able to get, and there was a big push for infrastructure changes and infrastructure approval on that side from the porn business, and so we have it, and they're still pushing for it. They are wanting to push more higher quality, in the so 3D's big, on TVs want 3D TVs, capable TVs. There's a big push to deliver TV via the internet, and so that takes higher speeds, and really there are some restrictions, some technological restrictions that are being worked through, so that you can almost have 3D type images pushed to your home. So that is not only on the sports, that's in pornography, that's in a lot of entertainment industries. So unfortunately now that it's cheaper, the internet is cheaper, bandwidth is cheaper, that unfortunately you have the main adult production companies are not the only people producing porn. Unfortunately, anybody with a camera and a lack of human decency does things. I mean, just like you have people put on, take pictures and videos of family stuff and upload it. Well, people are doing very indecent things and uploading it. And it's all, people are acting out with what they see. I mean, it's a very terrible thing. So the attacks are in your face, aggressive, if you're looking for it. And if you're not looking for it, it's there and it's suggestive. And I found this very interesting. I was on it was like an outdoors website that had to do with outdoor equipment, tents and hatchets and that type of stuff, because the boys, we want to start going camping and stuff, so we're looking at all this stuff. And so I saw this ad for fantasy football. It was a small square ad. And on that ad was a beautiful woman. She was plainly dressed, not immodest, but it said fantasy above her head and football underneath. And, for fantasy football, I would imagine that ads I've seen for fantasy football are guys kind of coming together. Who doesn't know what fantasy football is, by the way? Does everybody know what it is? Okay, so fantasy football is basically, you have a group of friends that get together and you kind of form a fantasy league. And what you do is you pick the best players of the NFL, and basically you create your own fantasy team. And based on the stats of each of those football players during the year, you can gain points, and you basically build your dream team. And the guys usually put in a pot of money or whatever, and whoever wins at the end, they get the pot of money. So usually the fantasy football leagues like CBS, and there's fantasy soccer, basketball, all that stuff. But anyway, usually it's guys like betting or pictures of a sports athlete with fantasy football. So why do they have a woman on there? It's because guys are attracted to that. I mean, it's just there. Fantasy woman football, it's just suggestive. It is. So if you're not into porn, you've got Hollywood and the industry wearing you down. It's got you wearing you down, taking your standards, taking your guard, and just pulling it down. Because if we look at it, and if we don't outright reject it, if there's not an explicit rejection in your mind of what you see, there's an implicit, I think, acceptance. There has to be an internal, this is wrong, and saying it outright. Because if not, the barriers come down. So the porn industry, they're an industry. They're a business. They make money off of doing terrible things. And they need to keep their market share. So we are their market share. Our children are the market share. They want to capture that. So they're doing everything they can to capture our children, our spouses, us, whomever. And I think that, in Scripture, Christ talks about when he pulled the little child in the midst and said, anybody who scandalizes one of the little ones should have a millstone hung around their neck. This is one of those instances. Because I want to say Our Lady of Fatima, in one of the apparitions, she talked about sins against purity are the sins that people go to hell for the most. It's because the sexual desire and appetite in a person, if it's rightly ordered, which it was in the beginning, can be focused, managed, and by the grace of God controlled. But if it's out of whack, it's a very potent thing that can drive you. So as bad as society is today, it's like we really need to guard ourselves and shore up the defenses. So, and then gone are the days of the porn store, the porn shop on the corner next to Southern Armatures, where my brother-in-laws used to work there, or where they work. There used to be a pornographic adult bookstore with the windows that were all covered up, and it's gone. It's a parking lot now, thank goodness. But gone are those days, because when you'd see those and people going in and out, it was kind of like, ugh. But now it's like it's in your home. It's become acceptable. And so much behavior now is acceptable that was never acceptable before. The guard's coming down. So I'm going to go through some examples of how porn can enter into our house, and some of it was very surprising to me because, and I'll explain why. Because I live and breathe the industry, but when I get home, I don't really like it, and I don't have a lot of gaming devices or any stuff like that because I just don't. But anyway, so how does it make it into our home? So any device that connects to the internet is a portal. Anything. So what connects to the internet? So you got your smartphones, you got your tablets, you got your computers. Smartphones, tablets, computers, there's private browsing on them. So if I'm looking at something I don't want anybody to see, I can go to either on my Android, or I think Apple, I forgot what version of iOS has it, or on my computer, Firefox has it, Internet Explorer has it, Safari has it. Those are the three main browsers. But there's an incognito mode or private mode. So a person can click on that, go view bad stuff, and it's not even in the history. You don't even know it's there. You don't even know. So the makers of the software and of browsers, your Firefox, your Microsoft, all that stuff, they're giving you tools and ways to go look at stuff without people noticing or seeing. So, and later on we'll talk about this, but what it's going to require from all of us parents is communication. First, communication with each other as parents. Solid on the principles, and then communication with our children. Kind of have to build up the street credibility with our children so that when we talk to them, that we have this relationship where we can address these things. But when I was looking up some stats for the talk, I'm looking in you can see sometimes when you go on the internet and you look for reviews or you look for stats or you look for something, you can see these posts of how do I hide porn from my parents? And you have people responding to it. How do you do it? How do you delete your history? It's all there. It's all there. And and like I said, it's an encouraged behavior now. People almost don't even hide it anymore. It's bad. So, what else? So your smartphones, your tablets, your iPads, iPad-like devices, this type of stuff. Now this is what kind of shocked me because I'm not a big gamer at all. Angry Birds or some stuff on there. Xbox 360, Xbox One, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 are huge for streaming pornography. Huge. Was it CNET? I don't know if it was CNET, but there was a site that talked about which device streams porn the most, and the Xbox One went up. Okay, I'm like, how do you do? I mean, but there's browsers on it, and there's apps, and you don't have to go to a specific app store, but you can just download apps. There's I don't know the names of, but there's like a equivalent of a Netflix, but for blue content, that can be downloaded onto Xbox One, Xbox 360, PS3, PS4. Wii not so much, but Wii is possible because it has a browser. So that stuff, there are no, that I saw, specific guards for these gaming devices to stop it from being downloaded onto the device. So that, and I don't believe there's an incognito mode on these devices, so it's going to take a watchful eye, an attentive eye, to maybe look for those things. So believe it or not, so the Xbox One is and the Kinect, the new Kinect device that hooks to your Xbox that does movements and sees your movements, that the pornography industry is incorporating all these accessories that are meant for gaming, and they're incorporating it for their evil purposes. So again, you don't have to seek it out. It can come to you, and it starts in ads, and this is mainly for boys and for men and for, people who are visual. There's ads, then the devil uses that as a suggestion, and so there has to be an explicit, in your mind, stop. Because as the imitation of Christ says, first comes the suggestion, then the delight, then the consent. So stop the devil when the door is maybe cracked a little bit, to kind of shut that door before it even opens. So another way, and this is probably more well known, that and it's called soft porn, which is porn is porn is porn is porn. I mean, there's no soft, hard. I mean, it's all bad. Makes it into our homes is via the paid movie channels on your TV, HBO, Cinemax, Showtime. All bad stuff, especially on the weekends. That was big on the articles. That's it's not explicitly like the really bad stuff, but it's still horrible. Nudity, all sorts of stuff, bad. So that's something to keep an eye on. We don't even have that stuff. I'm beginning to, I almost want to cancel cable. So primetime shows, primetime cable shows. So although you don't see body parts, there's enough there to lead somebody into however the weakness is for the woman, it's more mind, the game, and for the man, it's more visual. It's all tailor-made to play on that. So you have to be super careful what you take into your body via your eyes and your ears. And that is why primetime, a lot of it, I mean, I don't know what's on. I've read articles, but it's garbage. After, I don't know if it was the Super Bowl. I read the article where there was an outrage from some parents association that right after a main sport event, and I want to say it was the Super Bowl, it went almost, or maybe it was it was a cartoon, it was an animated thing, and it went right into some show where there was a very intimate scene going on, and so it's drawing you in, it's desensitizing you, and so it's bad. So they're desensitizing us to the sacredness of the human person and to human sexuality. And I was thinking about it's the moral Novocaine. I mean, it's the Novocaine that gets you, that kind of numbs you over time, and you just kind of. There needs to be an explicit, always rejection of it. So your eyes are the windows to the soul, and don't take anything in that would take us away from Christ, even if it's for the sake of a good show, a good story. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I mean, even though it's a great show or a good story, I would not want to see anything that would cause me to sin against Christ, to impede my relationship with Him. So let's talk about some ways how we can protect ourselves. And so during this part of the talk, feel free to interrupt me because this is really important that you understand. So we're going to start talking a little technical stuff. So stop me, raise your hand, I don't understand or whatever, and we'll do our best to work our way through it. Awesome. So how do we protect ourselves? We can protect ourselves with what we can control. We can control equipment and we can control devices. So that's how you protect yourself technologically. So your computers and laptops, your smartphones, Androids, tablets, the Kindle, anything that has access to the internet, your PlayStations and all that type of stuff. Another device. Has anybody heard of Roku? Apple TV? Now Amazon Fire. Apple TV, there's a way that you can stream. It's called AirPlay. So you can, and I'm talking, I'll say adult content porn. Roku has no adult or parental locks, and they don't have any adult channels in the adult store, but they have private channels. And the private channels is where it's at. On the private channels, it's bad. So Roku, there's no parental controls there. And if somebody's savvy or if somebody wants it, they can look it up on the internet and find it. Amazon Fire, it's brand new. In fact, we're EWTN. We're looking at hopefully launching on Amazon Fire soon. Amazon Fire does have parental controls. Now, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, what that's called is OTT, over the top. So it's supposed to take the place of your cable box, and basically through the internet signal you get your TV. So if you have a cable modem at home, you plug it into this box, and then you connect that box to the TV, and you can stream your TV signal. More and more people are starting to cut the cable because it's expensive, and you get all these channels that you don't watch. So more and more is becoming available on these devices. MP3 players and stuff that has screens or browsers. So if a child has an MP3 player like an iPhone Touch, I want to say those are Wi-Fi enabled. We'll talk about that in a second. So again, if it can get on the internet, it can be controlled because it's a device. So who does not know what Wi-Fi or wireless is? Good. Okay.
Okay, explain Wi-Fi. I'm
Okay.
sorry, we have it in our house and we hear it all the time, but I really don't know what it means.
So Wi-Fi and wireless is synonymous, which means if I'm connected to your network, or if you're connected at home and you have a laptop, you can walk around the house. You're not tethered to anything, or you don't have a wire to anything. So there's two main ways that the internet connection comes into your home. It's via your cable companies like Charter, Bright House, Windstream. It's called Windstream, right? And others. And then the other is the cellular side. So your hotspots and your cell phones and your tablets. Some of your iPhone, your Samsung tablets and your iPads. Some have the capability they all have the capability to connect to your home network, but some have also the ability to connect to this cellular side. So if you're traveling, you can take it with you. So what you have in your hand, the printout there. So this is a modem. This is a cable modem. This is what I got from Bright House, and the wire comes in from outside into this box here, and you cannot control this because this is theirs, and most of them don't let you have access to the configuration settings anymore on these boxes. So what you do is, and you'll see on the printout, you buy a router. So and you may have one of these. So these are wireless. So this is what makes wireless possible in your house. So if you buy this, you can control this. This is where there's two levels of protection on the router side and then on the device side, where you put software on the device. And I recommend both, and I'll explain why. So if this is what you control, if any of your computers are plugged into your modem, it's not protected unless you put software on it. But you can connect computers into here, so they will be protected. So how is it protected? How does this work? So when my internet comes in from my modem, it comes into my router and it's blasted out. What the router does is it routes the traffic from inside your house. It routes it to out and back. So you can have multiple connections at the same time. What you can do, and I'll repeat this because I would have to forget something, and I did. I forgot my printout, but I'm going to throw a name out to you here. It's free. It's called OpenDNS. What you do is and it's very easy to set up. You have to get in the settings here, and it's very simple. You tell all the traffic that comes out, that goes from here to here out to the internet. You say, hey, send it to OpenDNS, and you'd put in an IP address. And what OpenDNS does is that you can filter out types of traffic. You can filter out websites via content or web pages. So if it's pornography, lingerie, swimsuits, violence, drugs, chat rooms, there's a whole slew of stuff. And then if there's other sites that you happen to come across that's not covered, you can manually add it in. It's free. So that means anybody who comes to your house with a wireless device, you can say, yeah, connect to this, and they're protected. And it's free, and it does not affect your internet speed. So if you like to view videos and stuff, it's not going to affect that. Also, on Amazon, if you type in router pornography filter, a product will come up that I've never used before. It's an actual router with the software already built into it. That will protect it. But I want to say there's a paid subscription with that. But I was doing some research and I saw that. Again, I've never used it, but OpenDNS I like. So I don't think so. If you're on Roku and it's coming through here and it's coming through my router, and I'm saying, oh, go get a private channel that's bad, it's not going to see that. It's going to the Roku store and it's downloading an app. It won't stop. If you're trying to stream something via an internet browser, it will pick it up. So if I'm on my Xbox 360 or One or whatever it is, and I'm trying to stream something from the Xbox browser, it should pick it up. But if you're downloading an app to the 360 to your game system, it will. I think it would probably go through, because then it's just feed based. Oh. So again, stop me if you have questions. So it's a free service. I highly recommend it. It's easy to install. So what are the downfalls of this, or what are the shortcomings of this? Because everything is vulnerable. Nothing is perfect. So if I've got my phone and I'm on my home network and I want to go look at bad stuff, I can just say, turn my wireless off, and I'm going to go over the cell phone. So there's a way around it. And that is where we're going to talk about putting software on each of the devices that will block it. There's some very, 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 very effective software that's really good. And a few of us have tried to hack into it from the command line, and it's solid. It's solid. So we'll get into that now. Any questions so far? We're good? Awesome. Another reason why you want to put software on your phones and your laptops and your tablets is because if my son, which he'll be 35 before he gets a tablet, if he has a tablet and he goes over to a friend's house and the friend's network is not protected, then if I don't have protection on the device, then you can get stuff that you don't want to get to. And also, if my neighbor's Wi-Fi is close enough, I can connect to my neighbor's Wi-Fi if they don't have it password protected. Which even now, it's easy to break passwords. And if you're a kid who loves computers, there's a way to do it. If you have a computer at home that's Linux-based, any questions? Does anybody know? Okay. So I would say 95% 95 to 97% of the consumer market is either Apple or Microsoft. Those are operating systems. There's a third operating system, which is Linux. It's a free version of Unix, but which is Apple's built on it. But anyway, so Linux is a little bit different. So if somebody has a Linux operating system, there's not a whole lot of protection from that you can put on the computer itself. So that's FYI. I'm just trying to give you all the, so y'all smart and close all the doors. All right, so the reason why we want protection on the devices themselves is if your home network is bypassed, which it will be, because if you carry a phone around, you're outside your home network anyway. So I'm going to give you the name of some software, and I only really know very well one of these, and not all of these have. You want software that you can put on your phone and that you can put on your computer, and it's all controlled from one account. Not that you have to go to different places for different. Well, if it's the phone, if it's the computer, have to go to different places. It's easier just to have it all one-stop shop, right? So I'm a proponent of NetNanny. NetNanny is fantastic. NetNanny, you can have one account that's for the iPhones, iPads, Android tablet, computers, Mac, Windows. So some of the features that come along with this. Well, actually, let me give you some more. Covenant Eyes is another one. I've not used Covenant Eyes. Covenant Eyes, actually, I want to say they're Catholic. The next one, really strange name, but bear with me. It's called XXX Church. So what it is, and I don't know if it's holy deception, but these guys, they started in 2002, and they go and minister. Okay, so there's pornographic trade shows, so where all the industry gets together, and these guys go in there with Bibles. Evangelicals trying to evangelize, pull the actresses out, talk to them, tell them Jesus loved them, that they don't need to be doing this. And so they have software for your computer and your app. They have forums for people who need support. They've been around. I want to say they've been around. They're one of the longest that's been out there. But I know Covenant Eyes, NetNanny, and XXX Church, they have a system for your phones and your laptops and your tablets. AVG, which is an antivirus, and Norton and McAfee, they're all antivirus companies with antivirus software. They all have parental control software that you can put on your. But I don't know if it extends, and I'm not sure if it extends to devices as well. It does. Okay, awesome. Yes. Yes. So on NetNanny, how it works is they have, you have different users, and so each person, when they log into the computer, they can be prompted to, it's either the kid level or whatever level you want, and then for each of those levels, you put in the categories that you want or not want. So yes, and that also extends to the device. Can't get it off. Yeah, right. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. For example, so NetNanny has. Yes, because So Norton and AVG, I think they started out as antivirus. So they get embedded pretty deep in your system. So you can do an uninstall, but there's still traces there. Yes. With NetNanny, there's not. Yeah. So Yeah, all of these, there's a subscription to them, and NetNanny has packages. So if you want to do a whole family coverage, I want to say it's like $59 a year. So it's not too bad at all. Well worth it.
Antivirus too.
No, NetNanny is not. NetNanny is pure content filtering. NetNanny, Covenant Eyes, and this XXX Church. I hate saying that name, but it's pure content filtering. It's not antivirus. So if you get one of those, and again, I'm only going to speak from NetNanny's perspective. If you want to implement this on your devices and on your computers, you will need to be the administrator of that computer or that device. So that means if Catherine's the administrator, I can't go in and uninstall the software because I don't want it on there. You want it so that nobody can install it. Even if you reset the device, if your kids have the phone and they're not the administrator, and let's say they just try to wipe the phone completely, you have to be the administrator to wipe the phone. So they can't just erase it. Because that's totally possible. That they will try to do that. So you will need to be the device administrator on your computer and on your phones. So all of the above, the main stuff, you will want to protect. And again, I strongly recommend the device and the open DNS system. Yes? Yes. So for example, NetNanny, when you set it up, you will set it up as if you're the parent or the administrator of the account. And so you will have full control over that account. When you set up a laptop computer, when you're first setting it up, or you go into your user accounts, you can create user accounts and set up, Jeff as administrator or Jeff as a different type of user. So you set yourself up as an administrator. And anybody who's not an administrator, you can dictate what they can or can't do, or what they can access or can't access. So if you try to do something like uninstall programs or add programs, usually you have to put in a password for that. Android devices, you can develop an administrator for the device. And I know on the XXX Church app thing, if you uninstall it, the guardian will get an email that says this program has been uninstalled from this device. So you'd be notified. All of these, the functionality offered by all these services include content, blocking content by category. You can restrict the amount of time a user spends on the computer down to the specific days and hours. So if Jeff can only get on computers Wednesday from noon to 3, you can set it up like that. User reports. I like NetNanny also too, because sometimes if you go to if I'm on Drudge or something and I hit an article and I want to say it's like the ukguardian.uk, sometimes it'll block you because it's got all these bad pictures on the side and it's got the word sex, so it'll block it as pornography. And you can at that time, NetNanny will offer you the ability to send an administrator a note to say, hey, can you unblock this? Then the administrator can go view it and say, okay, yeah, it's fine, and they can unblock it. So there's like a communication method there. Just that URL, just that one page. It does it down to the page level. And it will give you reports of what's been seen with warning if something's been searched or something's been blocked. So again, it's the ability to foster communication with each other and with whomever you're protecting, of being able to address things like this. So again, when it comes time to your game consoles, I would just, basically with everything, I would just keep a close eye on it, because when you least expect it, you're gonna neighborhood kids, kids at school. I mean, it's kids anywhere, or just a group of kids get together or whatever, start talking. Hey, look at this! Look what I got! And it's like the there's a lot of open avenues there which can have disastrous consequences. So I think that okay, another thing. So this is my phone. I don't have any protection on this because all the protection that I put on it, I can't monitor EWTN streams. And this is my work phone, and I have to. So with my wife, there's constant communication between us of, hey, what's going on? Or how are things going? We're able to talk with each other of like, yeah, things have been tough, or things are going well, or whatever. And could I hide it? Absolutely. But she and I know each other where if I were to try, she'd be able to see it. I would recommend too monitoring social media. These will also monitor social media. Some of these will. So if you're worried about Facebook or chats or that type of stuff, it will also monitor that. So if your children's devices are sitting down, you should be able to just pick up. And if you watch, if there's a wincing then that's kind of a key of like, whoa, what are we wincing for? I'm trying to think what else. But communication, I think, is the biggest thing. And actually, the next defense that we need to shore up, and because trust me, if I don't want to be pure, if I'm addicted to porn, drugs, alcohol, whatever it is, if there's protections, I will find my way around it. Period. I mean, you will. I mean, it's just, if you're driven, you will find it. And so I think the most important thing, and these next two topics are going to be the most important part of the talk, is first spiritual protection, and then how that spiritual protection plays out. Because ultimately, all good that we do is a grace from God, and all the bad that we do is of our own doing. So we need the grace of God. So we as parents are the sentinels that are standing in front of our home. And we're guarding our children physically, spiritually, in every way. So we've got to be at the door guarding. So if we, the guards, are absent or not at the door, family's in trouble, right? So the devil we have big targets on our back because he obviously wants to destroy the family, and he's done a good job of doing it. So we've got to stand guard. So I have a few things that just to talk about briefly about the spiritual life that I think are really important, and I want to clarify just a few things. Father, shout out if I'm wrong or say anything bad. So the article, I'm going to read two paragraphs. It's a fantastic article. His name's Luis Martinez. He was the Archbishop of Mexico City right after the Cristero Revolution, the persecution, and he was known as a mystic. And he said, "There's nothing so important in the supernatural order as to have a deep, intense interior life. This is so because at times we run into the error of subordinating the interior life to the practice of virtues, as if our contact with God were only a means to perfection." Meaning, if I'm worried about practicing virtue and the moral life, because that is going to make me holy, it's actually the moral life and virtue should spring from our interior life, which is a relationship with Christ. So if I'm focusing on the moral life and the virtue, but I exclude the interior life and cultivating that personal relationship of prayer with Christ, then I'm jumping over $100 bills to pick up a quarter. Said the case is not thus. There is no doubt that prayer and all other acts of interior life have an efficacious influence on the acquisition of virtues. From our relationship with God, we draw strength wherewithin to repel temptations, self-knowledge whereby to be humble, sweetness of temper wherewith to treat with our neighbors, and the light and strength with which to practice all of our virtues. Even more can be said, for one may be sure that the virtues which do not have their roots in the interior life are neither deep nor solid. Man, I'm trying to get to the interior life part, and it's it's so true, because I think that there is no better motivation than love to do something. Sometimes it's either love or brute force when it comes time to virtue. Love of Christ or it's brute force. And love will win every time. But when love lacks, you kind of have to use brute force just to carry you through to do what's right. So, so if you remember in scriptures, there was a case where the apostles could not exorcise a certain demon from a person. So they brought him to Christ. Christ exorcised the demon. They kind of said, well, what's going on? And he said, well, this one could only be exorcised through fasting and prayer. So I'm a big believer that when it comes time to especially this type of stuff, fasting and prayer is what's needed. And I brought a few quotes that I thought were great from the fathers of the church on fasting. I thought this was great. If you fast regularly, do not be inflated with pride. If you think yourself highly because of it, then you'd better eat the meat. For it's better for a man to eat meat than be inflated with pride and glorify himself. I thought that was great. St. Basil the Great. Fasting gives birth to prophets and strengthens the powerful. Fasting makes lawgivers wise. Fasting is a good safeguard for the soul, a steadfast companion for the body, a weapon for the valiant, gymnasium for athletes. Fasting repels temptations, anoints unto piety. It is the comrade of watchfulness and the artificer of chastity. In war it fights bravely. In peace it teaches stillness. So we subordinate our bodily appetites to what is right. And I tell my kids this, and I try to practice it myself. So if I'm at the dinner table, and if I can't say no to those things that are illicit and good, okay, I'm going to leave, I'm hungry, and I'm not going to eat this because I just want to be able to tell myself no. If I can't do that, how in the world am I going to say no to something nice, that's bad, that I shouldn't, I need to build up that willpower. There's fortification of the faith, and it's only by the grace of God. St. Augustine says, fasting cleanses the soul, raises the mind, subjects one flesh to the spirit, renders the heart contrite and humbled, scatters the cloud of concupiscence, quenches the fires of lust, and kindles the true light of chastity. Enter again into yourself. So, St. Anthony the Great, and one more quote from him, he said, when the powers of the body are weak, the soul is strong. So that just goes to show that we have to fortify our spiritual life. And St. Teresa, she talks about, everybody know St. Teresa of Avila? Have you heard of interior castles? In the way of perfection, all that? Okay. So the interior castle, she compares the soul to a great crystal, that inside of the crystal, which is the soul, are many mansions or rooms, and at the center of it is the keep where the king dwells, right? So she talks about, and she used the comparison of a tortoise, how he enters into himself, that we have to enter into ourselves because the fullness of the Holy Trinity dwells within our souls. So there's a deep communion and relationship that takes place there. And she says, how do you do this? She said it starts with prayer and meditation. So, and that is where, I'm going to go on a limb here, that is where I think the centering prayer and all that stuff gets it wrong, because Father Dubay, have you all heard of Father Dubay? He is a legend, he has passed away on contemplation, the prayer life of the greats. He talked about how these other methods focus on they focus on the method of how to pray. And Christ didn't ever say, you've got to breathe, you've got to repeat this over and over, you've got to relax. Christ didn't talk about that. And he talked about how St. Teresa of Avila and John the Cross are the masters. They are the ones to teach on prayer, and never once do they say, this is what you've got to do. You just practice prayer. You start. And that will start you on the road. And let me say this. I want to read this again from Archbishop Martinez. He said, but the central point of the spiritual life is the contemplative life. Why? Because it is for this reason that God made us. He made us for himself, that we might know him, love him, and serve him. Hence, if we sacrifice ourselves to achieve a betterment of our life and conduct, it is solely that we may render ourselves worthy to have communion with God. Thus, our interior life is the summit, the ideal, the goal towards which our efforts ought to converge. So, even we are to have contemplative lives. For so long, I have thought that the contemplative life is for the contemplative nuns or the monks, but we are all called to have it in our vocation. So, the contemplative life, he talks about, contemplative life is the life of heaven. There, all the works of the active life will disappear. In heaven, there will be no passions to contend with, or neighbors to help, or miseries to bear. The life of the blessed is an eternal contemplation. They see and love him and united with him. This is the true life. And the Holy Spirit and the Trinity dwell within us. So we are called to have that relationship with them. And that will lead us to our daily lives. And this is kind of the other part of the talk that we need to make sure that we shore up is, especially as parents, talking to our kids, and that we practice ourselves, because I don't know about you, but I know our kids are intelligent, and if we're not practicing something, the kids pick up on it. I mean, I think the kids just know. And that is where, whether they're sinful acts, and this is what we tell John Paul and the kids, there's no rated R movies in our house. It's, and so when we get a movie and we watch, it's like, well, what are y'all watching? And we kind of want to know, is it R-rated? He's kind of probing just to make sure mom and dad are being good. And I said, listen, we can close the door of our bedroom, watch a movie, but just because you close the door doesn't mean that it's going to not affect the children. In fact, it's going to affect them even more. Because we have spiritual authority over our children. And so acts of vice and acts of virtue don't remain just static events that happen. They affect others, especially our children. So the more we practice virtue, we affect our children, we affect our neighbors, we affect others. And the more I practice vice, the more it affects our children and others. So when we're attacked by Hollywood, by the industry, by everything that's going on, if we're able to practice this entering into ourselves and say, I'm not going to do this. I want to, because I love God, because I have this relationship with him, I'm not going to watch R-rated movies. I'm not going to watch prime time because I just know it's bad. And I may want to do it, and I may be okay with it, but for my children, I'm not going to, because I know what it lets in the house. And a tidbit of, or just to talk about how these are powerful mediums into the house. Just an example I had when I was younger. I had most of the guys on the football team over to my house, and we were watching a movie that was very bad. It was documented, people dying. It was caught on camera, the people dying. It's a terrible thing. And there's one point. There was it was a satanic sacrifice that happened, and we had to shut it off. We were all very disturbed by it. So we kind of all dispersed at that point, and I went to bed, and at 1 o'clock I woke up, and I had this tremendous sense of terror and evil. And I was a football player, but I didn't even want to get out from underneath my covers because I just felt it on me, and all I could do was pray the rosary, and eventually it went away. And it had happened a couple times, but that night, or that next morning, my mom said, Jeff, what were y'all doing? So why? I'm not going to tell her what we were doing. And so she said, I said, we were just watching a movie. She said, what were you watching? I said, why? She said, because at 1 o'clock I woke up and I felt something very evil in our house. So it doesn't have to be a satanic sacrifice stuff that's going to let evil into your house. Pornography it's evil. And it communicates evil. Gratuitous violence is evil, and these are all mediums into our souls in our house. So we really got to protect that, and that is where we have to shore up our spiritual life, because the temptation is going to be there of like, oh, no big deal. This is fine, just this once. I hear it's a really good thing, but we can't. We have to shore up our lives, and we have to have constant communication with each other and with our children. So, there in Corinthians 1, chapter 3, verse 7, it's, so neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God gives it growth. So as you dive into your spiritual life, and you're praying, and you're meditating, and you just feel like it's going nowhere, You're planting and you're watering, but it's not you. God, at some point, God is going to deepen that. So he just wants perseverance from us, and he wants the desire. And it's kind of like the more you're struggling and trying, the more you desire it, and the more you want it. And I think he kind of uses that to say, yeah, I'm drawing you in, keep going, keep going. So persevere, because it will be hard, but it will be good, because once you get into that castle, it's a true fortification against the bombardment of the nonsense that's out there. And again, that will affect our children, because we ultimately want their salvation. So through a deeper interior life, we will reject more and more of the ways of the world, and we'll draw closer to God, and he will make everything grow. Then and only then can we truly protect and defend our families, because we've shored up the spiritual, we've shored up the fidelity in our daily lives, and we've shored up the technical. So it's a hard task, but I think, the Confraternity of Christian Mothers, and I also suggest the Angelic Warfare Confraternity. I mean, all these things and all the sacraments, everything is at our disposal. So we need to pray for each other. If you haven't started, start. If you screw up, like me, just try it again. So we will keep each other in prayer. Thank you.